Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It is a very brisk, cold morning. It's about 39 degrees, maybe 40. When it's clear and sunny during the day and it's clear and sunny during the night, you get huge swings in temperature. Anyway, I just finished watching Jimmy Dore's interpretation of the Native American versus the MAGA hat kid. I've also watched various other interpretations of it from the right and the center left. Jimmy Dore is the I think personally that he's the last stopping point on your way left before you get into territory where they stop covering it if it is an inconvenient truth. And yes, there's a point you get to on the right where the exact same thing happens. People are people, and some people just don't like to deal with the truth. But anyway, what I find interesting about the whole situation, or at least what I find the most interesting about the whole situation, is that once again, people look at the same videos, at the same evidence, and come to different conclusions. And for those of you who suggest that the videos are entirely objective, they are, but everything about it is subjective. The video, whoever put the camera in, held the camera, mounted the camera, whatever, determined the direction and viewpoint of the camera. The person watching it applies their own subjective filters to it. So I know everybody here wants to think that videos are going to be the end of any contentions. You know, there's people who see like videos where they think there's some sort of a police brutality or something like that, and they just say, oh, just show them the video, pay the money. It's cut and dry. It's still not always. Still not always. And I think most of this community, most of the world in general, is really blind to that fact. They think that their subjective interpretation is objective. But that was just a little note from my video watching experience this morning. As far as the sovereign citizen deal, the current thrust is apparently they want to make the argument that it is their car and the state's trying to get to control what they do with their car, and that's wrong and bad, and the state shouldn't be able to do that. It can't do that because it's their car. It's not the state's car. And there are a couple of unfortunate truths. The first thing is the state can control what you do on your property. They can't. There are regulations. There's building code regulations that you may have to comply with if you live in an area that has building codes. And if you don't live in that area, then obviously you would have to comply with something that doesn't exist. But the car, that particular argument about the car is mine, therefore I get to do whatever with it I want, is missing the point. The point is you're on a public road. You're using public property. And the public, through the power of the state and the police, get to determine how you use that property. It's not a free-for-all. The state controls it to make sure that your use of it infringes as little as possible on other people's uses of it. That's something that, for example, Methy Mouse didn't take into account with his ham radio station that he got violated for. He had to pay a ticket, I think, or a fine. Radio waves are a finite quantity. If you put your channel too close to somebody else's channel, it will interfere with them. And so it is controlled, kind of like lanes on a highway, and you have to have a license to operate a radio station. Because they're basically held in trust for the common good. And yes, I understand that only certain operators have access to those particular airwaves, but that's because they paid the license. And I don't know what to tell you. Beyond that, if you think it's unfair, write your congressman, write your senator, write the president, write the FCC. But the issue is the state is controlling the roads and the use of the roads. And again, amazingly enough, nobody put forth a court case that clearly stated that there is a right for you to drive / operate / pilot / whatever verb your car / automobile / motor carriage / land ship / whatever noun on a public road without a license or any other requirements from the state. Of note, some people did bring up the Amish. There is an ongoing misconception that the Amish have special considerations, like they don't have to have licenses to operate their carriages, and they do. I did a video on it. They have to comply with the same rules as far as insurance and license as anybody else who's operating on the road. If the state requires a driver's license to operate a carriage, then it has to you have to have a driver's license to do it. If the state requires insurance, then you have to have insurance. And if the state requires you to have certain like license plates or reflective devices or some other form of identification or traffic safety devices or whatever, then you have to comply with those as well. Another about the Amish, since we're on the point, since I did a video about it. Come on, you don't need to sniff it that bad. Since I did a video about it, they do have to pay all the taxes that you and I have to pay. The exception is there is a religious exception that's available to not just the Amish, but to other religions as well, to opt out of, I believe it was Social Security. But if they opt out of paying the Social Security tax, they certainly are not eligible to receive any Social Security benefits. So there is a religious exemption for that particular thing. But beyond that, they still have to pay property taxes and income taxes. And you need to pee? Is that what we're trying to do? He just needs to sniff, I guess. You probably can't see it because it's dark here, but he's just sniffing. Come on. Yeah, so they have to pay all the same taxes, property, income, etc., that everybody else does, but they have the availability of opting out of, I think, Social Security tax. Finally, it was just really interesting to me yesterday how much people who hate me are hanging their hat. They were hanging their hat that they caught me in a lie. Oh my God. Patty Cakes was so excited. He texted me yesterday. Oh, we got you. And he linked me to the video. We got you. Oh, you're not going to be able to take David down. I guess David is his new hero because, I don't know. Whatever. We got you. Yeah, I hate to disappoint. I hate to disappoint, but you didn't get me. You thought you got me. But once again, on that side, the failure to actually do the research and understand what you're dealing with, you get what you pay for, right? It was something I was just thinking there. Huh. Oh, yeah. there's another, it keeps coming up, and so I wanted to, I guess, just address it, since it does keep coming up over and over and over again. People always bring up the, I got away with it, or they didn't charge me with it, or whatever, and that is somehow evidence that it's not a crime. Again, that is evidence of officer discretion. Officers don't have to allow you, or they don't have to ticket you for most things. There are very few things where an officer is actually required to arrest or cite someone. There's a Domestic Violence Against Women Act, or Domestic Violence Protection Act. Anyway, there's a federal requirement, I think, that the states had to comply with to get certain funding, if I remember correctly. But the thrust of it is that, generally speaking, states have adopted it, and they arrest, if they get called out on a domestic violence call, somebody's going to jail. And has it been abused? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, because somebody goes to jail, they can be reasonably certain that the next morning the other person's going to be alive. Your mileage may vary. You may disagree with the rationale behind it, but that's why they do it. But back to the point is officers have discretion. Officers have a lot of discretion. And if, say, you're talking about the post office, a citation in lieu of arrest for filming at the post office, if they were to issue one, is a $50 ticket. Now, they could actually arrest you on it, and the actual sentence could be up to 30 days incarceration. But generally speaking, if you look at the various fee schedules for citations, like bond forfeitures, tickets, it's $50 for filming at a post office. And you're not going to get a whole lot of interest, apparently, for people wanting to do the kind of time and effort it takes to write you what essentially amounts to a $50 ticket. Unless, of course, you're being a real asshat, in which case they could actually arrest you and you could face up to 30 days. But it's a minor issue. And so until somebody actually pushes it with a postal inspector, not a police officer, because police officers don't arrest for federal crimes. But unless someone pushes it with a postal inspector and we actually get somebody fighting it all the way up to an appellate court decision, and they don't just pay the fine, the whole $50 fine, then we're not really going to know for sure. But to say that it is legal to do it because you haven't been arrested ignores the fact that it is on the books. And there is a penalty associated with it. And just like speeding, I mean, millions of people speed and are seen speeding by cops every day that aren't ticketed. I say millions, and I'm probably accurate in that. But maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe only tens of thousands. But the point is, there's a lot. And there's something very interesting that he wants to smell in here. Come on. And the point is that just going from officer discretion and saying that you got away with it doesn't say anything at all about the law. The officers don't determine what is or isn't legal. The courts do, the legislative branches do, and if an agency like the post office has been granted the authority to by the legislative branch to make regulations, then they do as well. So anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.